The latest weather data is out and it shows that the East had its wettest March in more than 40 years. In fact, the fields have been so soggy that farmers have had to delay sowing their crops. In a moment, we'll hear from Anglian Water and what that means for the rest of us. But first, Baugh has been getting her boots muddy.
Finally, a break in the clouds for Bedfordshire onion farmer William Findlay. He had to delay planting because of the extreme weather.
In March, we had over 100 millimetres of rain on 26 consecutive days. March was wetter than the entire of the winter rainfall, and it was also wetter than the entire of last summer's rainfall. We're getting these extreme periods of dry followed by very prolonged periods of wet. I can do something about the dry by irrigation, but I can't do anything. I can't put an umbrella over the field for the rain.
All right, let's dig mops.
It's not just large-scale growers that are struggling. At this Cambridgeshire allotment, it's a slog.
Really frustrated, yeah. I really wanted to get on top of things a bit more this year, and having such a late start to everything, it's just a real shame. It's gone on for a lot longer than usual, so normally by April it would be fairly dry, and the fact there's still this much water quite high up is worse than usual. So yeah, it's been pretty wet.
In our region, it's been the wettest March for more than 40 years and the 5th wettest since all records began. Here at Grafham Water, after last year's heat wave, the reservoir was almost half empty. They didn't know exactly how long it would take to fill up, but if you look at it now, it's near normal levels.
The March just gone, we had over 90 millimetres of rain across the region averaged. Now, March is normally our driest month of the year, so we saw over 2 times the amount of rain we would normally expect. So for the time of year, it really was exceptionally wet. February was the 3rd driest on record in this region, and then we went into an incredibly wet March. So that swing from one month to the next, from very dry to very wet, was actually one of the most severe swings we've seen on record here in this region.
Experts say that extreme weather patterns are becoming more frequent. These were the scenes in last summer's heat wave when firefighters spent days battling fires in North Norfolk. Water companies are still concerned about groundwater levels here. Back in Bedfordshire, this farm has its own reservoir, a lifeline in last year's heat wave, now ready to face what this summer might bring. Baugh, BBC Look East.
Regan Harris is the media team manager for Anglian Water. Earlier today, I asked her if the wet March was good for them. In fact, good for us all.
But I think at Anglian Water, we've certainly been doing a sort of happy rain dance for the last couple of weeks, in all honesty. Yes, so the rainfall in March, I mean, we've had about 170% of our average rainfall in March. So really, really good news for the East of England. I know it doesn't feel like it for our customers at the moment, but prior to that, we did have an incredibly dry kind of end of January and February. And then in the 12 months prior to that, a pretty dry period as well, going, from a very dry summer. So really, the wet March has done us a huge amount of favours.
So the fact that we've had a particularly wet March doesn't exactly ease the pressure on us all this summer?
Well, I mean, I think we have to think about it in the longer term context. So, over the last 12 months, what we've seen is below average rainfall across our region. And the East of England is the driest region in the UK. And on average, we get about a third less rainfall than anywhere else. And that does put pressure on our water resources. But we always say a second dry winter on the back of a dry summer would give us more cause for concern.
Yeah, it does baffle people a bit when seemingly you can have floods one month and then drought the next. But how complex is the process of water storage in terms of future reuse?
Well, I mean, it is a really complicated process. And of course, we are kind of at the sharp edge of climate change in our region, particularly in the east. We take our water from 2 main sources. One is surface water. So that's our reservoirs and our rivers. And then the second is groundwater sources. And it's about a 50-50 split between both. And so what we've seen is really good recovery in our reservoirs. So they are about 90% full at the moment, which is really good news. But those groundwater sources, which particularly affect the eastern side of our region, take so much longer to recover.
So what's your best advice for customers then in terms of being sensible with their usage, but particularly in a cost of living crisis, potentially saving money as well?
By saving water, you can also save money on not only your water bill, but your energy bill as well, because the biggest use of energy in the home is heating water. So it is stuff like taking a shorter shower, turning the tap off when you brush your teeth. But really, if people want to, be water wise at the moment, now's a really great time to get those water butts out. It sounds really simple, but if people can collect this rainfall that we're having at the moment and use it on their gardens, that's going to be really beneficial in the spring and the summer.
OK, Regan Harris, thanks ever so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.